What's going on, guys, and welcome to another Doctor Who classic review. Today I'm going to be reviewing the 6th Doctor Colin Baker story, The Twin Dilemma. This is weirdly the final story from season 21, which was a predominantly Peter Davison 5th Doctor season, but the first episode of Colin Baker's first story is, well, his first story is for some reason the last episode of season 21, which is a bit weird, so that's strange. So yeah, it's also Colin Baker's first story. But yeah, I don't know why they didn't just call the Case of Angels only the end of season 21 and then this was the start of season 22. It's one of the weirdest decisions ever, in my opinion, but alas, that is the case. So yeah, this is widely regarded as one of the worst stories in Doctor Who of all time, and I'd never actually seen it up until this point, so I was really interested to see what I would think of this, especially seeing as though this is the last post-regeneration story I've got to watch. Now that I've seen this, I've seen every post-regeneration story, so sometime in the future I will be doing a ranking of all those stories. So anyway, this is The Twin Dilemma by Anthony Stephen. The Doctor has regenerated and all is not well. Confused, angry, and acting strangely, the new Doctor decides to become a hermit, so takes his concerned companion Peri to a desolate asteroid where he plans to live for several centuries. The time travelers soon uncover a plot that threatens the entire galaxy. But why has an alien gastropod kidnapped twins, and will the Doctor recover in time to find out? So, an interesting little synopsis on the back of the DVD there. The whole kind of hermit thing is a bit strange, I will be honest, and I didn't actually really write that down in my notes, but yeah, the whole thing of the Doctor becoming a hermit, it's a bit strange, a bit random. I don't really know what that was all about. Just kind of got them to the planet, I guess. Yeah, a little bit random. So, yeah, let's get started with the cast. Colin Baker as the 6th Doctor. This is, of course, his first appearance as the 6th Doctor, and yeah, don't like him. I mean, it's not a performance thing. Colin Baker does a fine job with what he's given here, but just the way the character is kind of written. He's written in this story as a big dick. He's just such a dickhead in this story, and I'm sorry for that, but he really, really is. Now I know there's the whole post-generation thing, and the kind of thing, especially with him strangling Peri and stuff like that, and just his general behaviour is partly because of just regenerating, and every Doctor has a bit of a different kind of, bit of different side effects after they regenerate, but even at times, you know, because he has these little spasms where he, you know, decides to strangle Peri, or he just starts being more of a dick than usual. But then at other times, it's like he's fine. At the end of the story, he's pretty much got over his you know, his regeneration stuff, and he's still a bit of an asshole. He's really rude, and the Doctor can be rude now and again, but not in this way. It's like he's actively trying to be rude, and I just don't like it for this Doctor, and I think it's why the 6th Doctor has this reputation. A few of his first stories, he is a little bit like this. He's quite rude, he's quite dark. Eventually, throughout the season, he does come around, and especially for season 23, the Trial of a Time Lord season, he's a much better and nicer character. But yeah, this first story especially, really not a fan of the 6th Doctor. Then we've got Nicola Bryant as Peri Brown, and yeah, for me, meh. I'm not a big fan of Peri. She just doesn't really do it for me. The kind of overly, slightly annoying American accent that, I mean, Nicola Bryant is a British actress from what I know, and she's putting on an American accent, and yeah, you can kind of tell, and generally just as a character, she's a bit whiny. She's not like one of the screamy companions really, like, you know, Mel or someone like that, but she's just a bit of a whiny companion. And I mean, to be honest, in a lot of ways, I can understand why. You know, being with this new Doctor and seeing how he treats her, you can understand that she's a little bit whiny, but I think she's a little bit too whiny sometimes, and just her voice and everything, just, she isn't a companion that's ever really stuck with me that well, and the more I see of her, yeah, she's not really coming around to me at all, unfortunately. Alright, so let's get on to the good and the bad, starting with the good. Asmael is a Time Lord from the Doctor's past. So I thought this was actually one of the probably the most interesting plot point in the episode. Asmael, who was called, I think, Edgeworth or something like that. Beforehand, you know, he was using the name Edgeworth or something along those lines. But then we find out that his name's Asmael, and he's actually a Time Lord, and he's actually someone kind of who taught the Doctor way back when he was, you know, a kid, I suppose. So he's basically one of the Doctor's teachers, and I think that's a really interesting an interesting dynamic to have there. Now, unfortunately, we don't get to see a whole lot of them together, but the moments that we do see of them, it's interesting. You can kind of, with both their performances, you can see the kind of history with them too, and I think they play that very well. And yeah, I think definitely the kind of inclusion of Asmail as a character was definitely the best part about this story. The cave painting showing the ancient history of the giant slugs on Jakanda. So Jakanda was the planet that they went on that had the giant slugs, and Asmail was trying to do this thing to get the two smaller planets around Jakanda to like orbit around Jakanda, but then they kind of figure out that, wait a minute, this big slug man, I can't remember his name, he just wants to do this because it's going to cause, the gravitational pull is going to go all whack, and the planets are going to crash into the sun, and then the planet's going to explode, and then we have this whole other thing, which I'll get to in a second. But it's an interesting but slightly weird and convoluted plot. But we have kind of this whole cave painting thing where the Doctor's in the caves with Perry and that other guy, I can't remember his name. The police officer that they find at the start. When they get to Jakanda anyway. And yeah, they have that whole section. I just think that's quite a nice little section. The Doctor's talking about, he's talking through the paintings, and I just think out of everything, that's a pretty nice little moment to have there. The slug eggs are capable of surviving the sun exploding, and they'll scatter throughout the universe. This is what I was talking about. The giant slug, the main giant slug, I guess, the king of the giant slugs. He wants these two planets to orbit around. They're going to use the two kids who, the two twins have, they're really, really good at maths, and apparently they can figure out the coordinates to, get the planets to orbit around Jakanda. And then what Asmail doesn't know is that the giant slug man is trying to get it so that one of those planets will crash into the sun. It will heat up basically these eggs, which can withstand that heat. They'll get thrown out into the galaxy, put on all different planets, and then basically take over everything, which is a bit of a, we're just going to take over we're going to be the dominant force in the universe. Bit basic. Yeah, I think it's a relatively interesting concept, I suppose. And then the final good thing I have to say is when Asmail, am I saying his name right? Asmail. When he dies, I think that's actually a really interesting moment, because we know, when we find out he's a Time Lord, we also find out that he has no longer got any more regenerations left. So if he dies, he's dead. And he does die at the end in a pretty crap way, I'm going to be honest, but well, I mean, I guess it's not that crap. The giant slug man kind of takes over him, but he kind of fights back, pushes the giant slug man out, but ends up dying in the process. So it's okay, I guess. But I just like the moment once again with him and the Doctor. They kind of have that chemistry there. They both play it. Whoever plays Asmail and Colin Baker play it really well, as if they do know each other. They've known each other for a long time. And yeah, I think it's a really sweet and sincere moment at the end when he dies. So on to the bad, and yep, there is a little bit to talk about here. So first of all, let's get the obvious one out of the way. The Doctor strangling Perry is too much. Now, I had a feeling that it was going to be the whole post-regeneration thing. He's gone a bit crazy, that's why he does it. But I think that's a little bit too far. And especially when he continues to be a rude bastard throughout the rest of the story, it just doesn't sit well with me. And I just don't like the Doctor strangling Perry. I think it's way out of character, even for this scenario. I just don't like it. I don't know anybody that really does. Yeah, let's just put that to the side. Next up, the Doctor is all round a bit of a dick. I've said this before, even when he's not kind of going crazy because of the regeneration, throughout the whole story, and even right at the end, when he basically tells Perry, I'm the Doctor whether you like it or not. He's just a bit of a dick throughout the whole story, to Perry, to the cop, to everyone, basically. Yeah, really not very well liked in this one, in my opinion. Next up, the Doctor is happy to let the policeman die. When the policeman, he comes into the, they take him into the TARDIS. When he wakes up, he points a gun at the Doctor. It's kind of a bit delusional. He thinks that the Doctor killed all these people, but that's not the case. And then, you know, he kind of faints and he's about to die. The Doctor can save him. He said, yeah, I can save him easily. But then he's like, but why would I want to? He just held me hostage and wanted to kill me. Why would I, you know, why wouldn't I let him die? Why would I save him? And Perry, you know, Perry does a good thing and changes his mind with that. But once again, even if it's a regeneration thing, it just doesn't sit well with me. I just don't like the Doctor being put out as this absolute evil bastard. It's just how he's portrayed in this story, and just not a fan of it. Romulus and Remus are pretty bad child actors. So those are the two twins. Yeah, they're pretty bad actors, I'm not gonna lie. Not really a whole lot more to say, but yeah, they were a bit kind of, you know, oh hello, I'm Romulus, like, sounds like Harry Potter. They're not bad actors, you know, like all those people, but I don't know, there's just something about these two that doesn't really, it just, yeah, they just don't, yeah, it's a bit cringe, you know, a little bit cringe. And then the final bad thing is the giant slugs look terrible. They reminded me quite a lot of the Tractators, was it, from the Frontios, the Fifth Doctor story? Reminded me a lot of those, but maybe a bit less original. You know, just giant slug things. They really, and the way they talked as well, you know, the giant slug, the king one, talked, it was so obvious, it was really muffled just through a mask. Deep voice muffled through a mask, and it just didn't sound good, they didn't look good, and yeah, weren't very threatening on the whole. So, the twin dilemma, what am I going to give it out of 10? Well, I'm going to give it a 3 out of 10, which is maybe a little bit higher than some people would expect. It's probably my second least favourite story, maybe third least favourite story, I don't know, that I've watched so far. I will say though, I do prefer this a little bit, I think, over Time in the Rani, which is the Seventh Doctor's first story. That may be a controversial opinion, I don't know, I think they're both pretty well hated, but yeah, I think I do prefer this a little bit more. It's just not, it's very much nothing, this episode, whereas Time in the Rani is very much something, but it's not a good something, whereas this is kind of like that as well, but I just don't think it's quite as bad, personally. That's my personal opinion. I gave the Time in the Rani a 2 out of 10, so this is a 3 out of 10. This is also sitting with the Invasion of Time, which I gave a 3 out of 10. Yeah, I don't know which one's worse. Probably this, to be honest, but I don't know. I think Invasion of Time just went in a lot of weird directions that I didn't like, and it got boring. But anyway, the Twin Dilemma, it's a 3 out of 10. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. If you enjoyed, please go ahead, like and subscribe. Go into the description down below. Follow me on Twitter, that would be awesome. And I'll see you guys in the next video.